Funke's fiancé, got her a new car to make life easier for her. She celebrated the car with her friends and neighbors. Everyone was happy for her, and they congratulated her. But just the next day, her best friend borrowed her shoe because hers was bad. But just few days, her legs got so swollen, as big as that of an elephant. She could no longer walk, or even lift up her legs. What could be the cause? What could be wrong? Well, listen to this amazing story and learn real life lesson from Funke's story. They called her Miss Sunshine in the neighborhood, not because she was rich or loud, but because wherever Funke went, she left warmth behind. She had the kind of beauty that turned heads without trying. Rich chocolate skin, big expressive eyes, dimples that flashed when she laughed, and a natural elegance that made men pause mid-sentence. But even more than her looks, it was her heart that truly captured people. She was kind, gentle, the kind of woman who would give her last naira to a stranger without expecting anything in return. Her house was always open, whether it was a neighbor needing sugar, a friend going through heartbreak, or a distant cousin needing a place to crash. Funke welcomed them with soft smiles and warm stew. Her life looked perfect from the outside, too perfect. And maybe, just maybe, that's where the problem began. Among her circle of friends, Cynthia, Amaka, Tolu, and Blessing, Funke was the star. They all smiled together in group photos, wore matching aso ebi to parties, and toasted to each other's birthdays. But anytime they stepped out, into weddings, bars, or social events, men always drifted toward Funke. It wasn't her fault. She never flirted, never competed. Yet, men still stared at her longer, offered her the first drink, or tried to get her number. Sometimes, they even bypassed the others to talk to her alone. Some of her friends laughed it off, jokingly calling her the beauty queen. But deep down, something darker stirred, jealousy wrapped in fake laughter. Still, Funke never suspected a thing. She believed in sisterhood, in loyalty, in love. To her, the bond between friends was sacred. She loved them like sisters, blind to the small frowns they hid behind praise. She would often say, "I'm nothing without my girls. We shine together." But not everyone agreed. Behind closed doors, Cynthia once hissed after a hangout, "She thinks she's better than us because men like her. One day, she will know she's not the only one God created beautiful." No one replied, but no one disagreed either. One thing was clear. Funke's light was becoming too bright for her circle. Still, her heart remained pure. Even when her friends forgot her birthday, she forgave them. Even when they didn't show up to her events on time, she made excuses for them. And when they had problems, she dropped everything to help. Everyone loved Funke, or so she thought. And then came Obi, a man who would change everything. But before we get there, understand this. Funke didn't chase love. It found her. And when it did, it came with roses, promises, and a storm she never saw coming. They met on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Funke had just stepped out of her office, struggling to close her broken umbrella against the wind, when a sleek black SUV pulled up beside her. The window rolled down slowly. "Excuse me," the man said, his voice calm and confident. "You're getting soaked. Can I offer you a ride?" She hesitated. Lagos was full of strange men with dangerous smiles. But something about him was different. He wasn't pushy, just patient. His car looked expensive, but he didn't brag. His eyes held sincerity, not lust. "I'm okay, thank you," she said politely. He smiled. "All right, but let me do something kind. Take this." He stretched out a large branded umbrella through the window. She blinked in surprise. "It's clean, new. I had it in the back seat, please." She accepted it. That was how Obi entered her life, with no flashy words, just a simple act of kindness. 2 days later, he returned to our office building, this time waiting in the reception with a bouquet of yellow roses and a thank you note. I just wanted to make sure the umbrella worked. It was charming, simple, gentle, just like her. They began to talk, first casually, then deeply. Obi was a successful businessman, well-connected but humble. He had grown up in hardship and built his company from scratch. He understood struggle. He respected women with purpose. And Funke was everything he'd prayed for. He watched her closely, but not in the way other men did. He didn't stare at her body. He studied her character. She never asked for money, despite his wealth. Never dropped hints about her financial needs. She showed up for dates on time, dressed modestly, and always offered to split the bill. She didn't flaunt him to impress her friends. She even turned down expensive gifts when they started dating. One day, he tested her. He left his wallet at home by mistake during a dinner at a high-end restaurant. Without flinching, Funke paid the bill and laughed. "You better pay me back in plantain chips and cold zobo." Obi couldn't believe it. In a world full of women chasing wealth, Funke was different. She wasn't a gold digger. She wasn't trying to upgrade her life through him. She was real. After 6 months of dating, Obi knew this was the woman he wanted to marry. But he wasn't going to rush it. He still had one more surprise. Funke worked long hours at a demanding media job. She often returned home exhausted, struggling with taxis and unreliable drivers. One day, Obi showed up outside her house with a giant red ribbon tied around a brand new luxury car. Funke gasped. "What is this?" "You need something that matches your worth," he said. "You're working too hard. Let the car do some of the work for you." She cried that day. Tears of joy. She had never asked him for anything, yet he gave her everything. Not just the car, not just the roses, but something deeper. Peace, security, honor. That evening, she called her friends. "Girls," she shouted on the phone, barely able to contain her excitement. "Obi bought me a car." The next day, they all gathered at her place. Amaka screamed when she saw the car. Tolu circled it with her phone, taking videos for Instagram. Blessing popped a bottle of wine. Even Cynthia, who had been quiet all morning, finally forced a smile. "Wow, this is huge, Funke." Funke grinned, glowing. "And guess what?" she added. "He also proposed." There was a silence, just a second too long. Then came the screams. "Are you serious?" Funke raised her hand, showing off the gold engagement ring. "Girls, I'm getting married." They toasted. They danced. They celebrated. But Funke didn't notice the way Cynthia's eyes lingered on the car, or the way her smile twitched when the ring caught the light. Funke was too busy floating in happiness. She believed she was surrounded by love. She didn't notice the subtle way Cynthia kept looking at the ring. Then at the car. Didn't hear the muttered sentence. She whispered in the bathroom while staring into the mirror. "She thinks she's better than all of us. Let's see how long this fairy tale lasts." But beneath all the chairs and clinking glasses, a seed of bitterness had begun to grow. And soon, it would bloom into something far more dangerous than envy. The party had ended, but Funke's joy lingered. After her friends left, she stood in her compound, staring at the car like it was a dream. She touched the smooth bonnet, her engagement ring sparkling in the moonlight. Everything finally felt right. Her hard work, her patience, her prayers. God had answered. Her phone buzzed. A text from Obi. "I'm still smiling. Can't believe you're mine." She giggled and typed back. Forever yours. Inside her apartment, the last bits of wine glasses stood by the sink. Her friends had toasted her, danced with her, cheered her on. It was the happiest she had ever been in her life. But in the apartment across the hall, darkness clung to the corners. Cynthia sat in her room, with her lights off, staring at nothing. Her lipstick was smudged, her fake lashes removed. Her hand trembled slightly as she held a half-empty cup of wine. "Ka," she whispered. "Engagement. Husband." She scoffed bitterly. "I've been in 3 relationships this year. Nothing. But Funke meets one man and boom. Car and ring. Just like that." Cynthia wasn't always like this. Once she and Funke were truly close. But over the years, resentment had quietly eaten away at her admiration. She had smiled through the group pictures, smiled through the compliments Funke always got, smiled through it all. But this car, this proposal, it was the last straw. The next morning, Funke was brushing her teeth when she heard a knock at the door. She opened it to see Cynthia standing there with a slightly embarrassed smile. "Hey babe," Cynthia said. "Sorry to disturb you so early. Please, can I borrow one of your heels? My brown shoe just broke, and I need to be somewhere urgent." Funke didn't hesitate. "Of course. Come in, come in." She led her to the bedroom, opened her shoe rack, and picked a brown leather pair. "This one will match anything," she said, handing it over. Cynthia smiled, a little too widely. "Thank you, sis. God bless you." "No problem," Funke replied. "You know we're sisters." Cynthia nodded. "Sisters forever." She left quickly. Funke didn't notice the way she clutched the shoe tightly as she walked away. That evening, Cynthia returned the shoe. "Thanks again," she said, handing it back and hugging Funke. "You're the best." Funke smiled, appreciating the gesture. "Anytime, dear." Everything seemed normal. But that night, as Funke lay on her bed, something strange happened. Her legs felt heavy. She shifted, rubbed them. Nothing seemed off. "Maybe it's just exhaustion," she whispered. By morning it was worse. She sat up slowly, swung her legs over the bed, and gasped. She couldn't move her right leg. It was stiff, cold, as if it wasn't part of her body. She cried out. Her mother, who had come to visit a few days ago, rushed in. "What is it?" Funke pointed to her leg. I can't move it." Her mother rushed to her side, panic rising. "Try again." Funke strained, her face twisting, but her leg wouldn't obey. It was dead weight. They rushed to the hospital. The doctors ran tests, scans, blood work. Everything came back normal. "No medical cause," the doctor finally said. "You should be able to walk." But she couldn't. By the 3rd day, her right leg began to swell, slowly at first, then grotesquely, puffy, shiny, inflamed. Within a week, it was almost double the size of the left. Her toes looked like balloons, her skin stretched and hot, and yet, no pain, no sensation, just heaviness. Obi was frantic. He drove her to a specialist, then another. Still nothing. Cynthia came to visit, her face full of concern. "Funke, are you sure Obi didn't do anything to you?" she asked quietly, while Funke was resting on the couch. "I mean, men like that, rich ones, they use women sometimes, you know, for rituals." Funke looked up confused. "What are you saying?" "I'm just worried," Cynthia said, eyes wide. "He gave you a car, proposed, now this. It's strange." Funke frowned. "Obi would never do that. Don't ever say that again." But the seed of doubt had been planted. That night, Funke's mother sat beside her, holding her hand tightly. Tears slid silently down her wrinkled cheeks. "My daughter," she whispered, "this is not ordinary. We need to pray." Obi joined them. "I'll take her anywhere. Pastor, herbalist, prophet. I just want her to walk again. The whispers had begun, not just inside Funke's compound, but in the neighborhood, at her workplace, and across church groups. People who once envied her beauty and grace now lowered their voices when they spoke of her. She can't walk. They say her leg is swelling like an elephant. Maybe it's punishment for something. I heard it's her boyfriend, Obi. They say he used her for rituals after buying her a car. Funke heard none of it directly, but she could feel it. The silence when she entered her room, the forced smiles, the glances at her leg, then away. She was no longer the woman everyone admired. She was now a question mark, a warning, a mystery. Her mornings had become a routine of humiliation. Her mother would help her sit up in bed. Obi would carry her to the bathroom. And then they would help her clean the swollen leg, now too big to fit into any shoe, too sensitive for trousers, too shameful to bear. The leg had become something else, a beast of flesh, swollen, shiny, dead. Funke no longer recognized her body. Each day she stared at the mirror and asked, "How did I become this?" But no one could answer. They went from hospital to prayer house to spiritualist. Everywhere said the same thing. This is not a physical illness. This is spiritual. It's an attack. Someone is using something that belongs to her to hold her down. That was when one prophet asked a strange question. Then he turned to Obi. You gave her a gift recently. Something big?" Obi nodded slowly. "Yes, a car." The prophet shook his head. That was the trigger. Someone saw her rise and decided she must fall. Funke's heart pounded. "Who?" she asked. "Please, who?" The prophet paused, eyes closed. "A woman close to you. Someone who laughed when you laughed. Someone who held your hand, but held jealousy in her heart. She used something that touched your feet, your journey, your future." And suddenly it clicked. The shoe. "Yes," she whispered. "Cynthia. She borrowed my brown heels just before this started." Her mother and Obi exchanged a sharp look. "Where is the shoe now?" the prophet asked. "At home," Funke replied. The prophet instructed them to bring it. They did. As soon as the shoe was brought into the prayer room, the prophet pointed at it. "There it is. This is the object used." He turned to Funke. "The person who borrowed this shoe is the one behind your." Funke was surprised. She could not believe her ears. They brought the shoe to the altar, wrapped in a black nylon bag. The prophet didn't touch it. He sprinkled it with anointing oil and pointed at it. "This is the chain." Funke sobbed uncontrollably. "I trusted her." Her mother's eyes burned with rage. "That girl, Cynthia." The prophet prayed and told them to go. When they got home, she called Cynthia immediately. Cynthia came, her expression unreadable. "I need to ask you something," Funke said. "Swear to me. Did you do anything to my shoe?" Cynthia looked shocked. "What? Funke, are you serious? Please just be honest." Cynthia paused, then sighed. "I didn't do anything evil, I swear. But..." She swallowed hard. "Yes, I was jealous. I felt less. But I would never harm you. Never." Her voice cracked. "I just wanted to be like you for one day." Obi walked into the room, tense. "So you admit you were jealous?" "Yes, but that's all." I swear Funke didn't know what to believe. But her mother had had enough. "This girl cannot stay near you again," she said. "Let the police handle the rest." The next morning Obi returned with the police. Cynthia was calm when they came for her. No screaming, no resistance. She stood still as they cuffed her hands behind her back. Funke's mother shouted, "Wicked girl! You called her sister and this is how you repay her?" Cynthia said only one thing. I didn't do anything. But if my jealousy cursed me, I accept whatever comes. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. But from the moment she was driven away, Funke's healing began. That very night, Funke sat up in bed. Her leg twitched again. Stronger this time. Her mother gasped. Did you feel that? Funke nodded slowly. Obi knelt beside the bed, his hands shaking. Baby, are you feeling something? She burst into tears. I don't know what's happening, but I think the chain is breaking. Over the next few days, the swelling began to go down. Gradually, steadily. Doctors were stunned. It's almost like the inflammation is reversing itself, one said. We've never seen anything like it. Obi wept. The day she stood for the first time. Shaky, holding onto the wall, but upright. He held her and whispered, God didn't fail. He never does. Funke smiled weakly, but her smile held something new. Maturity, pain, awareness. She had learned a truth most women learn the hard way. Not every friend who claps for you is clapping out of love. Some are clapping while waiting for you to fall. For days after Cynthia's arrest, a strange silence settled around Funke's home. The kind of silence that wasn't peaceful, but loaded. Thick, like the air just before a storm breaks. Funke's leg was still recovering. The swelling had gone down significantly, but it was not fully normal yet. She could now stand and take a few shaky steps with the help of Obi or her mother. But every movement was heavy with fear. What if the leg swelled again? What if it was just a trick? What if the real person behind this hadn't been caught? She kept the thoughts to herself, but at night, they echoed like thunder in her chest. Obi noticed the fear in her eyes. One evening, while massaging her foot gently with warm water and oil, he asked, Do you believe it's over? She was quiet for a moment, then shook her head. I don't know. A part of me still feels watched, still feels afraid. Obi sat still, thinking. That night he didn't sleep. He got up quietly, took his car keys, and drove to Cynthia's parents' house. He needed answers. Cynthia's mother was a short, soft-spoken woman. When Obi arrived at their gate around 11 p.m., she was surprised, but didn't turn him away. She invited him in, offered him malt, then sat down. Madam, Obi said, struggling to remain calm. I need the truth. From you. From your daughter. What is going on? The woman looked worn. Her eyes were swollen. Her wrapper loose around her chest. She has not spoken to me since she was taken, she said quietly. But Obi, Cynthia was not raised this way. I don't know what entered her. Maybe the pressure. Maybe bitterness. But I warned her. I told her to stay away from envy. She paused, her voice breaking. Last month I saw her crying in her room. I asked what was wrong. She just said, I'm tired of always being in someone else's shadow. I didn't know she meant Funke. Obi frowned. Did she ever visit any spiritual place? Any native doctor? The woman was silent. Then, she said, I'm sorry, she whispered, but I don't know. Back at home, Funke sat on the edge of her bed, her crutch beside her, staring out the window. Her mother brought her hot pap, but she barely touched it. Do you believe Cynthia did it alone? She asked suddenly. Her mother sat down slowly, eyeing her daughter. I've been thinking the same thing, Mama said. Sometimes, a jealous heart is pushed by darker forces. People don't just wake up and do evil. They get help. Funke's voice cracked. Then who helped her? The next day, Obi took Funke to a well-known prophet in Ibadan. A man who didn't advertise, didn't do TV shows, but whose prayers were whispered about like legend. They arrived at a small prayer camp, surrounded by palm trees and silence. The man looked about 70, with white hair and a voice like rustling leaves. He didn't ask why they had come. He simply looked at Funke and said, You carry light, but the darkness around you is jealous. He motioned for them to kneel. Then he placed a hand on Funke's shoulder and closed his eyes. 10 seconds. 20. Then suddenly, he gasped. She wasn't working alone, the prophet whispered. The shoe was just a token, but the attack came from a shrine. A woman tied your picture to a red cloth and buried it. Funke shook. Obi held her. Who, sir? Obi asked. The prophet turned to Funke. You must answer that. You must search your shadows. That night, Funke barely slept. She lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, whispering names in her mind. Cynthia, no longer the only suspect. Blessing, was she too quiet during the celebration? Tolu, always cheerful, but had she ever been real? Amaka, the one who once joked, if I had your beauty, I'd rule Lagos. The words came back now, stinging. You must search your shadows. The next morning, Funke called all her remaining friends for a private meeting. They gathered in her living room, tense, quiet, unsure of why they had been summoned. Funke looked at each one of them. I brought you here, she said, because I need honesty. Someone among us helped Cynthia. Someone made sure I was brought low. I'm not looking for drama. I just want the truth. Amaka looked uncomfortable. Blessing shifted in her seat. Tolu's eyes were wide. I didn't do anything, Tolu said quickly. You know me, Funke. I was even praying for you. We all were, Amaka added. But something in Blessing's silence caught Funke's attention. She turned to her. Blessing, why aren't you saying anything? Blessing looked down, fiddling with her fingernails. Then, in a barely audible voice, she said, in this our cycle, I believe someone is practicing witchcraft. The person I don't know. But whoever that may be, will be exposed soon. But Funke raised her hand. Stop. I've heard enough. Her voice was calm, but her heart was in pieces. No one accepted to have conspired with Cynthia. They all claimed to be saints, but the prophet had said Cynthia wasn't alone. That evening, she sat in her room, alone. The house was silent. The shadows had been searched, and the truth, it hurt more than the swollen leg. She can't even trust her own friends. And the next morning, she stood at the compound, watching her new car. She had started walking again gradually. The pain had subsided, even though she can't drive her car yet. But at least she could walk comfortably again. Maybe in a matter of days, her legs will become normal again. But the question remains, who's actually the cause of her predicament? Was it really Cynthia? Or could Cynthia actually be innocent?